Hello, Bobby Wayne Scruggs, and welcome to Freightliner Custom Chassis. Today we're going to be covering some of our dash functions on our Optiview dash, our DriveTech steering column, hand controls on the steering wheel, and also our dash mount controls for our MT 6.6 liter gas chassis. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are with our DriveTech column and our steering wheel controls. On the left hand side here we have all the control buttons for what will display in our Optiview dash, and we also have our control buttons for our cruise control. We're going to go over now the Optiview dash and the functions and all the icons that you have available on the Optiview dash. So we booted it up and we've actually taken the widgets out so that we only have our park, reverse, neutral, and drive at the right bottom, and our battery voltage at the right corner. Also over on the left hand side you will see the fuel gauge, and it shows the speedometer in the center of the display. With our parking brake set, you will always see the parking brake, and just with the switch in the accessory position you will see the check engine light on, but that doesn't mean that you have a check engine light on the vehicle at the present time. So if you see to the left and to the right the little bubbles on each side, that is the icon selection. So on the far left over here you will see a button that has the 2 pages on the bottom of it, and this selection, this function, you can actually push the button and you will see widgets come up on the dash. So as you want to scroll through, you just continue to push that button and you will see the widgets that are available to be able to set up in the dash. So let's go and let's set up our dash. So let's just say that we were going to set up our fuel gauge on the left hand side. So we would bring it up in the window on the left hand side by scrolling through our pages. Then we'll hit our home button, and as it puts the blue box around there, it'll stay illuminated for 3 seconds, and then we hit OK while the blue box is illuminated around our gauge. So now to do the right side, we'll also go back, hit our home button once, hit it twice, it goes to the right hand side, and we can scroll through using our up and down keys to actually go through and set up the next widget on the right hand side. So let's look at setting up the tack there. So it's blue. We'll hold our OK button for 3 seconds, and then that should be displayed in our window, locked in on our window. Now you can still, at the same time, if you want to scroll through and look at different settings, this just locks your home screen. So if we want to scroll through on the left hand side, we put the blue box around it, and we want to look at what our trip distance, our second trip distance. This is our default screen here, it's blank. Then we can look at the tachometer, or we can look at the trans temperature, oil pressure, and back to our fuel gauge. Again, selecting home button the second time, we'll be on the right hand side, and we can scroll through that screen and we can look at trans temp, oil pressure, fuel gauge, trip 1, trip 2, and then our settings screen. So now we'll move over to the right side of the steering wheel control, and all of these controls are just your cruise. So to be able to turn the cruise on, you hit the top key and that will turn the cruise on. Then you can set your cruise at the bottom here, and this is also a set button and a decrease speed button. Then if you need to turn cruise off or stop cruise at any time and then go back and start cruise up, you can hit the resume button, and this is also an increased speed button. Then you have your cancel in the center that you can cancel cruise at any time. Cancel and then resume it. You hit your resume button once again. This button here to the far right is a marker interrupt light, and this function is not used in this application. So now one of the other functions that we'll discuss about the DriveTech column is that you also have tilt control on this DriveTech column. It's actually worked manually. You depress the pedal on the far left, just on the left side of the service brake pedal, and you can tilt the steering up and down to either position that you would like for the steering wheel to be. So once you depress the pedal, put it in the position that you would like or is most comfortable for you, then release the pedal and the steering wheel will stay in that position for you. So now we're going to cover the dash panel. We have 3 switches that are available on this vehicle that is on the dash panel. We'll start with the traction control switch, and as you see here, we have the normal and slash spin for the automatic traction control. If this vehicle is, when you actually start the vehicle, it actually goes into default mode, which would allow the traction control to be on at all times, and it would allow it not to have slip. So once we depress the switch one time, you'll see the icon light up on the dash. It says TC with the imprint of a tire. That indicates that traction control is actually off. When you depress the switch the second time, that actually turns the traction control back on. So continuing with our dash panel, we have 2 switches on the left hand side of the dash, one being our headlight switch. We have automatic to the left, then back to the center would be off, then manual. First notch to the right would be parking lights or clearance lights, and second selection would be headlights. So if you're in the automatic switch mode all the way to the left, to be able to take this vehicle out of automatic for a headlight switch, you would need to go back to the off position, then rotate it through the manual cycle all the way to headlights, then back to the off position, and that will actually take it out of automatic. If you have it in automatic mode and then you go to off position, it will stay in the automatic mode until the key switch is actually cycled twice. Next would be the dimmer switch for the Optiview dash. This dimmer switch only works when the headlights are on in the on position. They can be in automatic or in manual. The minus sign actually decreases the background lighting for the Optiview dash, and the positive actually increases the backlighting for the Optiview dash. So as we take the cursor over to the right side, clicking it the second time, then we'll hold down our OK button for 3 seconds, and you will see vehicle configuration, diagnostic, and menu off. So really we only have 2 selections in this screen to be able to go in and make changes at the home screen. So this is the home screen of the settings menu. So if our bar is highlighted over the vehicle configuration and we select OK, this will allow us to be able to go in and change our units setting, which changes it from metric to standard setting. So if we click and highlight metric and click OK, then we can actually change over to a metric setting on our speedometer. And then if we want to go back to standard, we just click on the OK button and go back and put standard in the window, and that will allow it to be in standard function. Now if we go down to reset to default and we select OK, then our screen will actually go black. Then it will reboot, and it's actually resets to default settings that was set up from the factory. So to be able to get out of this screen, then you hit the button here on the right of your selection, and that is a return. So when we select it, we can actually go back to the main menu. Then we can drop down to diagnostics, then click OK. And under diagnostics, we can look at faults. So if we select faults and we select OK, it'll come up and boot up, and it will give us any codes that is recorded in the ECM for any fault codes that we might have. So just on the ones that are here from the factory, this is settings that you see and defaults that you see in the system that does not have functions in the program set up for this vehicle. So when you see SPN, SPN actually stands for Suspect Parameter Number. FMI is Failure Mode Identifier. OC would actually be Occurrence Counter. And SA is the source address. So if we were looking at this SPN 2914 and then we went to our codes chart, we could actually read what this code is. Then we could go over and see that the FMI, which would be the failure mode identifier, and then the occurrence would actually give us, the OC occurrence would actually give us how many times that had occurred, and the source address in the program would be 33. So that is for the fault codes. Now if we go out of this screen and we hit our return button again, click it one time, we can go down and see internal diagnostics. So if we select internal diagnostics and click OK, then the internal diagnostics has 3 pages. That is basically just showing you the functions in the program out of the ECM for this vehicle. And it shows you now like headlight switch is off, service brake switch is off, right turn signal is off, left turn signal off, parking brake is on, and steering axle is off. So we can scroll through these by clicking on our up and down arrow keys. So this is page 2, page 3, and then we go back and scroll up, page 2, page 1, and then to exit out of this screen, we'll hit the return button once again, and we're back to our main menu. So if we go down, the next one on the screen would be transmission prognostics. We select transmission prognostics, we click OK. This actually allows us to be able to read our oil level. Now there's no reading in that oil level at the present time because the transmission is not warm enough. You must be at 140 degree temperature with your fluid sitting on a level surface to be able to read the transmission oil level. If we scroll down in that screen, we can actually read oil filter life. The status is okay, and we can go down and look at the oil life. Oil life is at 99%. So that gives us all the information about the fluid in the transmission. So if we hit our return button again, we can go down and look at our camera system, our 360 camera system. If we select on it, okay, then we can go to the screen which is starting calibration for the cameras, changing the camera view, and truck color. So we can actually select the color of the truck, which would be white or brown with this instance that we have loaded in. We select OK. Right now we have white highlighted, so we'll select OK. And to get out of that screen, we simply hit the return button again. We can go up and we can change, we can look at the change view of our cameras, select OK. But there's nothing happens. You just see that it highlights it because there's no way that we can change the camera views with simply the switch on the steering wheel. So then if we go back and we select calibration and we click OK, this is a process that shouldn't be used during anything except during maintenance time. So if there was some issue with the cameras and we needed to recalibrate the cameras in our maintenance department, then you would bring it into the shop. We have a procedure for calibrating cameras. Then we would go to this icon to start the calibration, select OK, and then go through the formalities of being able to calibrate our cameras. So we're going to back out of this screen. We're going to hit the return button once again. We're going to go down and you see the next icon will be systems information. We'll highlight it. We'll click OK. And systems information is only going to allow you to be able to look at the version of the software for our dash panel. The date that this software was released and put into this vehicle, which is 10/19/2021. And if we needed to update the dash or go to a different version of software, we have the capability of being able to plug in a thumb drive with the latest update on the dash and start the procedure of updating the software for the dash. And this would also be a function that would only be done in the maintenance department. So to back completely out, we can hit the home button. As you see, it says hold home button for 3 seconds, and we will leave this screen. The blue circle will appear around it. Then you can release the home button and you back at the home screen, the default screen for your Optiview dash function.